Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. Well, the Cameroonian government's recent decision to ban media reports on President Paul Biya's health and his whereabouts has ignited a firestorm of criticism, raising serious concerns about press freedom in the country. The move, spearheaded by Minister of Territorial Administration Atanga Paul Inji, the Colonial Minister of Territorial Administration, came in the wake of widespread social media rumors speculating about the president's health and potential demise. This action has not only been met with national outrage, but has also drawn the ire of international human rights organizations who view it as an unconstitutional overreach that threatens the core of free speech. The sudden clampdown has sent shockwaves through media circles and beyond, as journalists, citizens, and international observers question the implication of silencing the press on such a critical issue. The timing of the restriction, with elections on the horizons, has further intensified concerns that the colonial government's actions may be an attempt to control the narrative and restrict free speech, preventing essential conversation from taking place in the public sphere. Criticism has also come from abroad, where figures like T. Bernard, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, have voiced their concerns. The global media, including major international news outlets, continue to report on the very topic that the Cameroon journalists are now forbidden to touch. President Paul Biya, at 91, has been notably absent from public life since attending the China-Africa Summit in early September, sparking widespread speculation that has extended far beyond the borders of the Cameroons. While the Cameroonian government has labeled these rumors as baseless, denied any concerns about the president's health and potential demise, the restriction on media coverage has only amplified international curiosity. Well, as the world talks openly about the situation, still, it raises an unsettling question. Can a government truly silence a conversation that has already captured global attention? If journalists and press houses in the Cameroons are barred from reporting on such a significant matter, are we also to expect a ban on the world from speaking about this? Well, the tension between local restrictions and global discourse sets the stage for a much larger discussion on the rights of a free press and the power of information in the modern age, and more importantly, the stones unturned with the mystery of a missing President Paul Biya. Well, let's head on into yet another exciting briefings of Undaunted with the prime headlines.
Stand with Ambazonia. Empower ABC Amba TV. We are calling on Ambazonians around the world to unite and uplift ABC Amba TV, Ambazonian Broadcasting Corporation. In this critical time of war, ensuring the station's survival is more important than ever. But what does ABC Amba TV truly represent for Ambazonia?
At the heart of Ambazonia's war of independence, ABC Amba TV stands as a beacon. Years of recolonization, annexation, and French Cameroon's oppressive occupation of the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia have led to our exclusion. Our identity was hidden, our history distorted, our sovereignty denied.
Queen of England is aware that the British Southern Cameroons were never a colony under France.
Since its inception in 2018, ABC Amba TV has been our lifeline.
Months of diplomacy have failed to resolve the crisis as fear grows over an imminent Russian invasion of Ukraine.
Our work in the dark is our chance to tell our stories to the world, to give voice to the voiceless, and broadcast the truth of our struggle.
We are serious about executing this revolution.
It has become a vital arm of our government in wartime, making diplomacy achievable and showcasing our untold stories.
ABC Amba, you guys know how important ABC is for this, our quest for international recognition.
Your donations can make a world of difference. Every bit of support helps keep our stories alive, our presence known, and our fight in the global conversation.
The moment they notice that we are no longer on air, they think that, oh, maybe La Republique has succeeded. This is about Ambazonia. One thing we must always remember.
Where would we be without ABC Amba TV? Let's ensure we never have to find out.
A revolution is a temporary state of insanity to bring about sanity.
Mobilize, donate, stand with Ambazonia. Donate to ABC Amba TV.
Together, let's write the next chapter of our history.
It is better to light the candle than to curse the dark.
Support ABC Amba TV campaign. Ambazonia Independence, voice for the voiceless. Mobilize for change.
Oh, and these are the prime headlines of Undaunted tonight. We see press freedom under attack in the Cameroons, with Paul Biya missing for over a month now. And we see Ambazonian resistance, with the Ambazonian State Army defending its strongholds amidst conflict from the ADF. Exploitation allegations in southern Cameroon's churches is also in the news tonight, with 7 supposed ex-fighters present in Bamenda as from Widdicombe. But then we see a tale of deceit, colonial deception. Frelimo's candidate wins Maputo amid tensions over election results, is on the African scene, and on the foreign scene, Trump's secret COVID-19 test kits for Putin, Kremlin confirms. With that, we'll head on into the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. Stay tuned. The Cameroonian government's recent decision to ban media reports on President Paul Biya's health has sparked widespread criticism. Minister of Territorial Administration Paul Atanga Nji imposed the ban after social media rumors about Biya's health and potential demise. But this move has been condemned as a threat to press freedom and unconstitutional. Human Rights Watch and the Committee to Protect Journalists have been vocal in their opposition, stating that the restriction doesn't meet the threshold for limiting press freedom under international law. They argue that as election approaches, Cameroonians more than ever need free speech, not less free speech. The controversy began when President Biya, who is currently 91, went missing from public view for over a month after attending the China-Africa Summit on September 5th to 6th this year. The government has since then denied rumors about his health, with Communication Minister René Sadi describing them as pure fantasy and imagination. The banner reporting about President Biya's health is seen as a major setback for press freedom in the Cameroons. Opponents argue that the ban violates the country's constitution and undermines democracy and its principles. The government's secrecy surrounding President Biya's health and his whereabouts has fueled speculations and rumors. Human Rights Watch has called on the government to respect freedom of expression and reverse the decision. The Committee to Protect Journalists has asked the government to arrange a public appearance by President Biya to quell rumors of his possible demise. Politicians like Edith Kawala, Akerimuna, and Jean-Michel Ninchu have condemned the decision as a constitutional violation and an abuse of power. The situation projects the ongoing challenges to press freedom and democratic principles in the Cameroons, particularly in the lead up to the 2025 presidential elections. And of course, it is a delight to do this particular issue with the well-learned, the veteran barrister Mbeseha. Good evening, Barrister Mbeseha.
Good evening, and happy to see you once more at the beginning of the week.
It is always a pleasure to have you here, Barrister Mbeseha. Now, this is a topic we have talked about before. We talked about this last week, possibly even twice. But it's here again in the news because with all of the bans, we still see so many media outlets still talking about it. I mean, La Republic can only ban its nation, the journalists in its nation, even if that is illegal. They could do that because as it is, La Republic seems to be a lawless country. But we still have the world talking about this particular issue because it is quite important and it's not something that could just go under the rug. We still have the world talking about it. But there is a particular concern I have with this ongoing report. We see Akere Muna, who of course is against the ban on people and journalists talking about this. But then Akere Muna says a 2004 law reorganizing the Constitutional Council gives the President of the National Assembly power to refer a vacancy to the Council. But this referral will also be determined by Article 64 of the 1996 Constitution. What is the implication of this revelation from Akere Muna, and how true is that? How authentic is that?
Well, what Akere Muna is saying is legality and constitutionality of the absence of a president. Is he right? Of course he's right. Because the Constitution provides for when a vacancy or the absence of a leader in politics in Cameroon can be considered a vacancy of that office. That is right. But the issue is they are trying to cover up this. This is strange to us, Ambazonians, but not too much strange because for the past 41 years, we have been at least passive observers of what goes on in Yaoundé. This is the first time President Paul Biya is absent from office. No. Cameroonians are used to, they are very familiar with how Paul Biya rules most of the time from Switzerland. He goes out for days and months and weeks, takes hotels over there, and rules from there. And nobody questions him. The president, who was elected as a human being, takes upon himself to hand over the presidency to somebody whom he calls his Secretary General in what he calls delegation of signature. And nobody questions it because it was not a delegation of signature. It was a surrender of the authority given to him through elections. Why? Because that decree giving that delegation of authority to somebody states, amongst other things, that it is that person to whom he has delegated those powers that would decide on what document the president can sign. Instead of the reverse, it is he who can authorize the president to sign something, not the president to authorize him to sign something. So, in fact, that is the precedent. But that has gone unchallenged. And Akere Muna says it legally. And I wonder where it is. Even the delegation of signatures, the document is clear. It's a delegation of signature. That is, in other words, writing, signing something. But it has been transformed into higher instructions. Higher instructions are not signature. This has gone unchallenged in Yaoundé since it started in 2019. And Akere Muna is lawyer, lives in Yaoundé. He lives at his own house. Why all this? We don't know. But why is it now being discussed is what is important. Why is it being discussed? It is because from that 2016, the time that they delegated this signature thing, Ambazonian declared we're no longer part of it. But that's not all. It is being discussed today, October 2024, because an Ambazonian news outlet announced that Paul Biya was dead rightly or wrongly, he announced that the Paul Biya was dead. That's what has set up the frenzy for Akeremuna, for all other networks in Yaoundé to be discussing how long, how legally is it possible for the president to be out. So the question should have long since been asked. The people of Cameroon, if they elected Mr. Paul Biya or anybody, they did not elect him to live abroad. They did not elect him to roll by instructions. They elected somebody they wanted to see physically present. But since 2019, Paul Biya has been physically absent. He has not made any public appearance anywhere in Cameroon to show his presence as a president. Even in the worst case scenario where there have been disasters, what you could find is a surrogate going there and say, this is a presidential gift from Mr. Paul Biya, not from the presidency. And so the question that they should be asking is, whom did they elect? Because if they don't hold this guy to account, Biya, who is already an old man and naturally will die, the next person is going to continue doing the same thing. A total abuse of authority, a total abuse of what you can call a constitution. Because there is no country in the world I can remember. Maybe there are. That gets a political leadership that is completely absent. The president in any political system, and in particular in Cameroon, the presidential system directs the public affairs of the country. All ministers, Atanganji and the rest inclusive, they are only his assistants. He is not the assistant. They're aiding him to propagate his policies. Atanganji has no policy of his own. Neither does any other minister there. And so you cannot execute a policy of a person you don't know. Where did he propound this policy? We don't know. And so Akeremuna is right. But the most important thing is, it is being debated now in Cameroon and worldwide because an Ambazonian, call it a citizen of the Nozo, as they call it, has come out to say, look, this man is dead. But we are wasting our time discussing nonsense. If this man is alive, it is so simple. Prove that the guy who said he is dead is wrong. Let him come out and talk. It's not enough to show his picture. Because somebody can be dead politically, he can be dead when you are physically dead and buried. You can be dead when you go completely inactive. When you are inactive, you are dead in that sense that you are no longer active. You are a dead living being. They don't elect dead politicians. They elect active politicians. And so it is for them to show, not to question anymore. Let him show that this guy is alive, not by bringing his pictures. Let him come and preside over the crisis that have encountered. Let him come and preside over cabinet ministers. Let him come and sign decrees and whatever they do in that country, not by delegation of authority. Once he's not doing this man is dead, and we stand by it. And as Ambazonians, as I've said many times before, we have been in this thing too long. It has been too long. We would have long since come out of it. We have said no to it. They can have their dead president, which is not going to be part of us. Over to you.
Statement from Akeremuna concerning the ongoing situation in the Cameroons, but particularly La République, has also sparked concerns from Ambazonians. As we saw today earlier on Mimi Mefo's post, she says we have to know our constitution, according to Mimi Mefo, so that we don't get misled into thinking Biya can be replaced by just anyone. Now, this is a concern. People are starting to wonder from what Akeremuna says, talking about the 2004 constitution. Does it have any impact, or is that another outlet for people to somehow put in the people who already are in the government? Because like you said, he's been a leader still in absence. He's been leading, but not with his presence there. These concerns are from people who believe that there's a possibility that the the constitution might be manipulated against the peoples of La Republique, and anybody, just about anybody, can just be reinstated into seat. Is there a possibility of that from everything Akerimuna has said prior in that post we just saw?
Well, I think my understanding and my reading of the constitution is this, that what they call constitution in Cameroon, nobody respects it, talk less of the president. I just give an example. If you respect the constitution, what part of the constitution permits him to live out for so many years, hiring offices in Switzerland? So the constitution to them is a bare document to fool, to deceive people. If there is a constitution in Cameroon, it has been abused, nobody respects it. Akeremuna talks of the Constitutional Council constituting, sitting out there to say this office is vacant. It is a sham. They're not going to do it. Why? Because what is this Constitutional Council? It is headed by people. The president of the Constitutional Council in Cameroon is a man of Paul Biya's age. He's sicker and weaker than Paul Biya. He has been on the wheelchair for many more years, not hiding. He's there on the wheelchair. He can barely talk. The president of the Constitutional Council is his brother or whatever thing, by extension. And so, how does this man, the leader of the Constitutional Council, act when he himself is a dead living corpse, is a dead living somebody? He cannot do it. Even if he's not dead living, he is so much affiliated to the president as an individual. He gains a lot from him that he will never be the one to preside over declaring that this office is vacant. Because at his age, he is still earning money. He's in 90s. If probably in 92, the guy is about 90. Mr. Tangana. Who is going to cause the Constitutional Council to act? They are a group of people, all appointed by the president. And so Kawala says not everybody can take over. That is true. But that is just in principle. In practice, they will take it. The guy who will step in to organize for the interim, officially by the Constitution, is the president of the Senate. But as we speak, the president of the Senate, Nyen Jefenji, is in the hospital longer than Paul Biya. He's a dead living human being. And so he can barely act, he cannot even talk. So how do you expect this corpse to convene the Constitutional Council or to sit there and preside in the interim? He cannot do it. By the Constitution, the man who can act after, if Nyen Jefenji is not there, is the first vice president of the Senate. Who is the first vice president of the Senate? Is Mr. Nkili. Nkili is the brother-in-law to Paul Biya. Not just a clansman, a brother-in-law. If not, what do you mean? You expect this man to come and say Paul Biya is dead? He wouldn't do it. The people who could act and say, look, let something be done is the parliament. Who is the president of the parliament? Yeye Jabria, who is by 89. He barely moves. And so I have, in my own language, as a government with a presidency in the mortuary, and the institutions put on life support. And so nothing is working. You cannot talk about the Constitution because that's not how a Constitution works. And so they can tell all those theories, none of which is going to work. But the issue is, why have Cameroonians lived this terrible thing for the past 40 years? Those things were not put in today. Why? Why did they allow themselves to live that way for the past 40 years? Why did they sit down to wait for the 2 cubes of sugar that could dissolve in seconds to raise these issues that have become national issues, that have become international issues? And so we don't know how we found ourselves in the wrong spot. It is never too late. We are leaving them. They can live in their jungle village called country. We are not part of it. Because a country requires that there's some laws. It's not just enough to have laws. There must be people to enforce the laws. Again, this is a country with a presidency in the in the mortuary. Who are those guiding it, protecting it from falling militarily? They are the B. The B who are overstretched fighting 13 counties in Ambazonia instead of defending even the presidency. The B who have no food to eat. So is it a country that you can talk about a constitution? Is it a country you can talk about anything legal? There's no legality there. We don't know what happens next, but we suspect, unless they are very, very careful, the unthinkable will happen. It will not happen. We pray it should happen constitutionally, but chances are that it's going to happen and it will take many more lives. It will be a revolution. If you have to take down all these walls, iron walls, concrete walls that have been put in place for the past 50 years. A century is a long time. You and me might not live for 50 years. But if somebody has lived there for 50 years, there have been concrete walls around the presidency, concrete walls around the system, and you expect it to change. It looks difficult, but again, whether the change or not, that should not be wrong from Ambazonia. We realized it too early and said, no, enough is enough. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister Mbeseha. But then what is interesting is after all the threats, what we're seeing is Cameroon journalists, they're being vehement and they're being adamant to those threats because they understand that it infringes on their rights. But I mean, we're talking about La Republique. A lot of rights are hardly respected. That is why they remain top on the highest jailer of journalists amongst other countries in the world. That's why they continue to rank top. But we're getting to see images from people in Cameroon who believe that Paul Biya is dead. They continue to believe that, and they post what we'll call observations, or what some other persons might call trolling online, talking about Yaoundé in tears, observing the countenance of Minister Tanga Paul terrorizing Cameroon's press and social media, but then talking about him privately being in tears with a solemn look he had in church with other CPDM loyalists in church. People had to take these photos and continue their observation, or trolling as you would rather call it. And we also have other people online on social media saying, especially opposition leaders who refuse to bow to Athanga Inji's threats. They refuse to bow to Athanga Inji's threats as they continue to talk about the issue on the ground, the situation. We see this on social media. Well, away from that, we still have something of interest, because all of this right now, we're putting ourselves in the ongoing events as it affects La Republique. But then we have somebody who continuously talks about the Cameroons. We're talking about Thibault Naji, who continues to talk about the Cameroons, and he hasn't been silent about this matter. In a tweet he made, he said, "So Cameroon's government has made it illegal to even discuss President Paul Biya's death. That smack of desperation and shows lack of confidence. This will just make people more concerned and talk even more about President Paul Biya's health. Such steps make regimes less stable." And this was a tweet from Thibault Naji. This is someone we know who is never silent on the matter. But what makes it more interesting is not just him stating the obvious, but him talking about how this could possibly impact the Southern Cameroons. In another tweet, he says, if a new government emerges in Cameroon, it would present a golden opportunity for justice for Southern Cameroons to take advantage. Ambazonian factions should present a united front to a new Yaoundé government in testing its willingness to engage seriously on Southern Cameroon's future. Now, looking at this tweet, would like you to give us what are your thoughts about this his tweet, basically?
Well, Tega Nash, what you call him, is partly right and partly wrong. Most of his analysis is correct. It's correct in what he's saying. But he says, if a new government emerges in Yaoundé, he's urging Ambazonians, call them groups or factions, to unite for that new government in Yaoundé to offer them something differently. which is where I disagree with him. Yaoundé, we're not asking for Yaoundé to offer us something. We're not asking, everybody can say it, they are right to say what they are saying. We're not asking for us to unite. But what we can do, and what we should do, because he says, this denial and the illness of Paul Biya can end up with the new government in Yaoundé. And I've said right here, that new government, if it comes, is probably not going to be a peaceful approach to changing the thing. Whatever is the case, what is important for him, that he has said to us, is that will offer us an opportunity to take advantage of that new guy, that new government in Yaoundé, and probably take what is ours. How we do it, I'm not going to discuss it here, but that will offer an opportunity for all Ambazonians to seize that opportunity and get to Buea. We're not going to ask a laissez-passer from someone in Yaoundé to go to Buea. So if that government occurs, that offers us one of the best chances to go to Buea. So when he says a new front, no, we don't. It's not going to happen, because if Paul Biya were to die or to fall, he's not going to fall alone. He has not been rolling alone. There are people, including Ambazonians, and most importantly, people like Tanganji, who know that if Paul Biya were to be buried physically today, they are buried with him. If Paul Biya was to be declared incapacitated but still living, they go with him. And so they are going to fight to the last breath of their life, because that's the end of their own career. They are not going to find any position in Amazonia. They are not going to find any place for themselves in the new regime that will sprout out in Yaoundé. And so we know what it is. Tibunash has the right to say what he says, but I think let us take the positive out of it and try to see how we can get out of there. Tibunash, like many of our sympathizers and critics, they are never going to speak our language. Never. They speak the way they want. They are freelancers. And so if there's something that we can tap from it, that is it. He has told Yaoundé, well, you are coming to the reality. Agreeing that this man is even sick and trying to catch up is news. Because they have never said that they thought this guy was invincible even to death. And then he says, well, so this thing might end up with the new regime in Yaoundé. That's a fact. Then he turns to Ambazonians and say, well, we'll unite. If we don't need unity, if we are strong enough as a simple entity, and I think we are as a government, that's okay. If we get to Buea today and set up our offices, nobody will ask us that, why are you here without your Oyaba? Why are you here without a Christian? Nobody will ask us that question. So that's semantics. Saying that we should unite, that is just semantics. That should not be our concern. Those of us in this government should prepare ourselves. You sitting there and talking, get ready with your passport, and be sure to be announcing from Radio Cameroon, Radio Ambazonia in Buea. Over to you.
We look forward.
You don't need somebody's
amazing
passport. You
future.
don't need somebody's.
Certainly do.
You don't need somebody that say passe to go there.
Say? Yeah. I didn't quite get the last thing you said, Barrister Mbeseha.
No, I said you, tomorrow, when the Paul Biya is declared dead, you don't need a laissez-passer to go to Buea and start to announce from there. So
We look forward
let us
to an
begin.
amazing future.
Let us all be ready to get there by day or night at the least opportunity given to us. And the opportunity is becoming clearer and clearer. Over to you.
Certainly, every single Ambazonian looks forward to that future. I mean, that is what the entirety of the struggle is about, getting to Buea, reclaiming her sovereignty, dignity, and her territory, Ambazonia. Well, with that, we've come to this particular, the end of this particular conversation. It's been intriguing. It's been going on for days, and it will continue to go on for days. But for now, we'll head on to the rest of the reports on the home front. And yet again, we see the Ambazonian State Army's resistance defending their stronghold amidst the ADF sabotaging their efforts. Over the weekend, reports from Boyo County revealed that the Pythons of Boyo, a highly regarded special unit within the the Amazonian State Army launched a strategic operation against the forces of the occupation Gendarmerie Brigade in Mbeseha. In a swift and decisive action, two heavily armed gendarmes notorious for terrorizing the local population, were neutralized by the Ambazonian State Army. And on Thursday, October 10th, 2024, the Bully warriors of the Ambazonian State Army, under the command of Major General Tolkendu, faced an unprecedented assault by over 300 elements of La République Cameroon forces. The La République occupation troops invaded the village of Kikaikom in the Kumbo local government area, a known stronghold of the Bully warriors. In a prelude to the attack, internet connections in the area were severed, reminding us of something that happened way back in 2017. Indicating La République's desperate attempt to isolate and overwhelm the Ambazonian resistance. However, the Ambazonian State Army, vigilant and well-prepared, had already gathered intelligence on the impending invasion. By morning, the Bully warriors mounted a fierce counterattack, displaying remarkable courage and tactical expertise. The La République forces, unable to withstand the determined onslaught of the Ambazonian State Army defenders, fled in disarray, abandoning their mission. This successful defense reaffirmed the strength and resilience of the Ambazonian State Army. While the Ambazonian State Army continues its efforts to repel colonial incursions, internal challenges persist. Well, we'll call it national challenges rather. National challenges persist, particularly with the notorious Ambazonian Defense Forces, the ADF. Over the weekend, reports surfaced that the ADF General Bush Rambo from a local government area found himself yet again in trouble, this time in Boyo's Mbeseha village. According to reports, Bush Rambo killed a civilian who had refused to allow him to use his house as a prison. In retaliation, Bush Rambo not only killed this man, but also burnt down his house. Yet again, we see a callous and anti-revolutionary action against the peoples of Ambazonia by people who claim to be fighting for the same peoples of Ambazonia. The outraged population of Boyo chased Bush Rambo through the dense Kilimanjaro forest, where he became lost. And just on Friday, Bush Rambo attempting to sneak back into Boyo, but was caught red-handed by the local civilian population and taken to an unknown destination. One of his accomplices was killed during the confrontation. Tensions remain high as the whereabouts of Bush Rambo is to be known only by these villagers. General Gola, who controls the area, has yet to make a public statement on the matter. While the situation remains volatile as residents await further developments in the unfolding conflicts within the Ambazonian resistance. Barson Basie, I would like to come back to you. This sounds like something that you have suggested in a way over time, talking about the people being ready to defend and protect themselves from these barbaric acts of the ADF. We see yet again one of such barbaric acts. I mean, first of all, talking about the man who refused his house to be used as a prison. In his defense, he probably did not want to be in between any form of crossfire, in the trouble with the colonial forces or whatever the case. And he just said, do not use my house as your abduction point. We don't know who he was abducting. For all we know, it possibly could be even Ambazonians whom he chose to keep for ransom. We could never tell. But then these Ambazonians said, no, do not use my house. And that cost him his life. For Bush Rambo, that was enough to kill an Ambazonian and burn his house. The actions of the peoples of this particular village, the actions of the people retaliating and getting these Bush Rambo and his other fighters who were part of this callous action. That's what I'm talking about when I say it's something like what you have said before, what you have suggested, the people protecting themselves, going after them and getting them. And one of them in that scenario was actually killed during the confrontation. What would you say about this?
Well, I think what happened in Boyo, he said Boyo, the so-called Rambo, what he was doing is nothing short of criminality. He's not an Ambazonian fighter. The Ambazonian fighters, the ASAs, are a volunteer force that live with the people. When they live with the people, we don't mean that they live in their houses. They are friends. So As part of the struggle, there is no part of this fighting that requires you to adopt people and go and keep in some prisons. We've always said that this government, including our army, we don't have a prison that will keep people because we don't even need to arrest our own people. If we catch our enemy, if we catch our enemy, he's a war criminal, he's a war prisoner. If we don't kill him, we know what to do with him. So forcing yourself on the population and saying that you want to bring people and keep in somebody's house that you call your prison, it's just an illegality. It's a crime against humanity. It's a war crime. And so we can say thank you to the people of Boyo, whoever were involved, for acting the way they did. And I would ask them to keep their eyes open. If they see somebody behaving like that, he's not their protector. He's not doing anything in their interest. Let them act in the best way they can to defend themselves and to eliminate such a danger. If they will not kill him, that's okay. I don't say they should kill somebody. But that guy should leave that place. And so those are the who have run into the bushes. You see, in the Bible, we have something an eye for an eye. If before running into a house, you killed like they killed that young man, there's nothing wrong in killing you if you two are caught. Because that is worth the price. That's worth the revenge. And so the boy people did a good job to do what they did. They should be encouraged to continue doing it. And then for the first part of your segment of this report, what happened in Boyo, in Ebui? I thought that by now, if the people had any sense in their head, they would have declared, they would have already known that Bui is a no-go area for them. Because there is not the truth of a tooth. If you take out the tooth of a Bui guy, you lose 5 in return. If you successfully kill one of those guys, military guys in Bui, 1, they will take it down in their own numbers, not just 1. And so their own strategy should have realized this for the past 7 years, that Bui is a no-go zone. If they continue to take the risk and go there, let them get there. They're going to have their cup of tea. As long as they go to Bui, enforcing illegal rules. Bui has not crossed to Fumban or Noon. They have not crossed to Mbunda. They have not crossed to Bafusam. They attack them. So leave the Bui people alone. Go to your own places and you'll be safe. And so our boys in Bui, congratulations. Keep your eyes open. Don't give them even a breathing space. Over to you.
Mbeseha, well said. Well, we'll move away from the reports on the ASA and the insecurity on the ground. We'll head on to politics. We're seeing politics now in church, and we're wondering what is going on. A concerning incident occurred actually last week, October 6, 2024, at a local Catholic church in southern Cameroon, where congregants were asked to contribute funds to support flood victims in northern Cameroon, sparking feelings of frustration and neglect amongst displaced persons in attendance. The appeal made by Bishop in care of the CPDM affiliated church highlighted the perceived disparity in support and resources allocated to southern Cameroon. Many displaced persons expressed sadness and disappointment, citing the lack of similar initiatives to aid victims of the ongoing conflict in their own communities. Just last week, we reported a sad flood story in Malfour, Bamenda. The flood was so scary that we saw it swallow cars and almost all humans. The question is, was any call made like this? We know Christians are to help each other, but charity is to begin from home, isn't it how it's said? The action alone is making Southern Cameroon residents feel neglected, with no comparable efforts to address their own humanitarian needs. The church's collection totaling 162,000 francs CFAs from a single parish raises questions about the cumulative financial burden on Southern Cameroon's communities. Allegations surround Bishop Nkia's involvement with the CPDM party, potentially fueling perceptions of exploitation. So we ask again, when will Southern Cameroons receive comparable support and attention, especially from priests? Are church leaders prioritizing the needs of their local congregants? How can transparency and accountability be ensured in church-led fundraising efforts? This incident underscores tensions between what La République would rather differentiate as Francophone and Anglophone communities in the Cameroon, highlighting the need for support from home where it is most needed, from home where it's facing the ravaging 8-year war, and acknowledgement of the ongoing conflict impact on southern Cameroon. This particular report right here just goes to show the Bishop in Care undermining the struggle, undermining the ongoing war in Ambazonia, and rather prioritizing whatever happens with La République, like the floodings, and not the floodings even in Ambazonia. It goes a long way to paint a rather not very good picture, especially for the bishop, as there's already been piling allegations against him. Would like to get to you quickly, Barrister Mbeseha. Put your thoughts in this, and then we'll get on to another propaganda as to speak in southern Cameroons.
Oh, well, it's a good topic. But let me start from somewhere else, because this issue of church has come up so many times. Maybe a good number of us mistake a church for a building. A church is a community of people, a group of people. So when they say the Catholic Church, the Presbyterian Church, it's not the moderator. A moderator is a worker of the church who will leave that office sooner or later, either by election or by death. The bishop is not the owner of the Catholic Church, because there are so many bishops. They are servants of the church in their different dioceses. So what Archbishop Andre does in Bamenda is not a representation of the Catholic Church in Ambazonia. I've said in terms of the Catholic Church, for example, in that Ambazonia alone, we have 5 bishops. There's a bishop in Kumbo. Nkea is one of the bishops in Bamenda. There's a bishop in Mamfe. There's a bishop in Kumba. There's a bishop in Buya. All these Catholic bishops preside over Catholic communities that are in their millions. And then back to the topic that you asked. The Catholic Church, like most Christian churches, deal with charity. What is charity? Charity is, put in simple language, even in the Bible, helping the helpless, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, housing the homeless, and so on and so forth, visiting the sick. That is part of the charity. And as far as the Catholic Church is concerned, and I'm sure also of the Protestant Church, most of the facilities that we enjoy today, even in Ambazonia, under those churches, came through charitable things. Ballet, this was sponsored Ballet College, which was a Christian school. If you go at the heart of it, you find there were Christians abroad doing it. I don't even need to the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church, they have churches, they have hospitals, they have those things that have been built on charity. So the Catholic Church is open to charity. That should be done. But the important thing is, like, you see this Archbishop man doing this thing here in Bamenda, calling it charity. He's free to do that. But it should not be a question of Ambazonia or Francophone. Because I've not seen the Bishop of Garoua, who is next to Yagua, doing it. There's a bishop in Garoua. There's another bishop in Yagua. There's another one in Marawa. There's one in Gaundere. And there's so many of them in East Cameroon. They are not doing that. So they can go on with their charitable work. But the most important thing is that those people who give out whatever thing they are giving in Bamenda, if they feel that they want to help a particular group of people anywhere in the world, they should make sure that their money goes there. They should make sure that whatever thing they are contributing goes there. Because they don't give that money, Andrew is not going to print money. He's not going to mint money and go and buy things to make his politics. But the people in the Bamenda diocese, his own diocese, which he has, if they think that they want to go and help a community in Yagua, they want to go and help a community in eastern Nigeria, in Kampala, anywhere in the world, they're free to do it. But they should be sure the money goes for it. My anger and my frustration has been the church, be it the Catholic Church the ministers of the church or officials of the church, call them pastors, moderators, using the pulpit to misdirect the people, using the pulpit to give wrong interpretation to this problem. Andrew is free. I remember even in this process, 2 years ago, is it up to 2 years ago, they very much talked about Tanganji. At Tanganji, when I built a whole church, he purported to be a Catholic church somewhere inside Yaoundé in the south. He built one. Well, people are going to the other church. We don't know where the money came from. Probably was blood money. But are the Christians going to say we're not going to that church to pray there? They're still doing it. So our problem is that we have a problem that all these church workers, according workers, bishops, priests, pastors, they are church workers. They are in the majority Ambazonians. They are in the majority still in the context of so-called Cameroon. They are Cameroonians. And so they want to take part in Cameroon politics. They are right to do that because they have the right to vote. They have the right to debate as you and me are doing. But they are trying to use those positions to influence our political debates. That is wrong. In case I want to say that, or only one want to say, well, I want one Cameroon. Free to say that, but don't use your pulpit to campaign for that. Because when the people come into church to pray, in that your very church, you are going to find Ambazonians. Most of Bamenda is mostly Ambazonian. They're going to be there. There are people there who support this independent thing. Thousands, if not millions. There in that your very church, you may find some people who come to pray there. So leave out the church thing there. Don't use that your pulpit to get a Prado, to get a helicopter, to please Yaoundé. Don't use your pulpit to assume a political office, call it mediator, to help us understand what is meant by the Grand National Dialogue, to help us understand what is meant by a federation. Who understand those things? A bishop, a pastor, a moderator is not imbued with extra political knowledge than you and me. So this is the frustration. But as far as they do it, if they want to help people wherever they are, if it is the bishop of Bamenda in Bamenda, I'm not seeing the same thing in Kumbo. There's a bishop there. I'm not seeing the same thing in Mamfe. There's a bishop there. I'm not seeing the same thing in Kumba. There's a bishop there. There's one in Boya. I'm not seeing one there doing like that. But if you must do charity, don't let your charity mix up with the politics. Because you don't need to be, in fact, as we speak, we have had some groups from the world that have come to assist Ambazonians health-wise. They are not Ambazonians. They are doing charitable work. And so it's a misconception. The offices are being misused, which are supposed to be purely religious. Then they are using them for political ends, which is what we all disagree. And again, to sum it up, the church is not, the Presbyterian church is not the moderator, he's just a worker. The Catholic church is not the bishop, he's just a worker. And so let us understand this. We don't go out and say, well, the Catholic church is bad because one Catholic priest, one Catholic bishop or what, he did the wrong thing. That does not make the church bad. Over to you. Because not every church worker, not every pastor, not every bishop, even every pope will go to heaven. We've had bad popes. And so let us not mistake the actions of certain church officials, prelates, ordained or civilian or unordained, to represent the church. If he tries to do that, as history goes down, if you read the history of the church, sometimes we've had very bad bishops, very bad priests. We've had very good ones who were not even bishops. Who has forgotten about Mother Teresa? He was not a bishop. But her works as we build today, she's in heaven. Who was forgotten about Pope John, who was just scented not too long ago, was canonized. Only one out of the several popes that have lived there. So again, we try to distinguish them and know that my mother, your father can be a Christian in the Catholic Church, and not all Christian churches, they do charity. Or be it Presbyterian, Baptist, Full Gospel, they do charity. Over to you.
Can you hear me now?
What did you say?
You're right. Well, in this case in point, we're talking about Bishop and Kia. I could understand the people's concerns about the charity. Of course, charity is something, like you said, that is done in every church. I could understand the people's concerns owing to the fact that just a week ago there was flood. It's more like the congregation talking about, is there now selective charity, or shouldn't charity be done for everyone, especially the people who are contributing? Like you said, this is not his money because he doesn't print money. It is the contribution of the people to give away. It is a concern of Ambazonians being concerned if Bishop Nkia is now acting like an intermediary for La Republique and not being concerned about his own people. But then, would like to get your thought in this regards quickly so we move on to the next report. Do you think their questions are founded? Do you think they're unfounded?
No, the concerns that people raise are properly founded. But we must also know that you and me, I've just said that the bishops, like you and me, were not imbued with extra knowledge. I'm sure there are people in Bamenda, in his archdiocese, following our debate. Even that money they raise and call it for charity, they are using it. He has the committee that is doing it. Those people who are running those things, they listen to us. They are sometimes elders older than us, more educated. So what we say here is only to put light, give advice where probably they did not know. I don't think they are so stupid to know that they should collect this money and go down to Mbengwe and help a woman who is dying there. I don't think they are so dull to think that, not to know that you can take that money, enter a bus in Bamenda there and you're in Manfe to see the refugees. That is well known. So our action, the concerns that you've raised are very, very important. But our enlightenment is also important to help those people who are doing managing that so-called charitable thing that they are doing there. They have a whole department in the church headed in Bota, Catholic Charities. And they are following us. So I think they will learn a lot from what we are saying. The concerns are genuine. No, there's nothing to say they're not, they are very, very genuine. Then our contribution is also important because it makes them to know that we are following them. We know what they're saying. We know what they're doing. Often, if your mother were to give that money, maybe she will give me out of the small money and send back to her at home. Send up $100, she will go there and take $20 and give them. So they're following these debates. I believe so. Thank you.
Another layer to it. But then we'll move on with the reports. We'll move on with the very last one on the home front. And this is the one where we call parliamentary manipulation, so to put. We're seeing that the in-house slave and a parliamentarian to the La République du Cameroon Colonial House Senate from Widukum has brought forth 7 boys as Ambazonians who have dropped their weapons, according to his story. The colonial parliamentarian Enway Francis, who has been absent as development is concerned, has in an attempt, according to what Amazonians would observe, to gain popularity from the colonial regime, brought up 7 boys without doubtful origin as Ambazonians who have dropped down their weapons in the fight for the restoration of their independence, their nation's independence. Well, at the presentation of the so-called 7 Ambazonians to the colonial governor, Adolphe Lafrique, Enway Francis said he personally convinced the boys to drop their guns, a declaration that pundits considered not true. Well, the question asked is, how can someone like Enway Francis, who is a refugee in the La République town of Yaoundé, be able to negotiate with those back on the home front, a home that he has abandoned since the start of the armed conflict in Ambazonia? This is in line with the usual propaganda with which the colonial regime has been tackling the war in Ambazonia. So this is where Ambazonia gets skeptical. How can a parliamentarian who is not even on the home front be able to, from all that distance, convince not 1, not 2, but 7 fighters who have already laid down their lives to restore, to be part of the fight for the sovereignty of the nation, convince them from that lengthy distance to drop their weapons, surrender their weapons in front of him? So this is where pundits are getting very skeptical about it. Barrister Mbeseha, looking at this scenario, what do you think about it?
Well, I think every naked eye, every open eye can see that it's pure manipulation. It is irrelevant. Let us be reminded that this guy, the so-called senator, is from Widikum. And the story of Widikum is embedded in the whole story of Momo. And in the past several years in this struggle, Momo had been dominated by the ADF. Momo is in disarray. Even those who were, ADF is in disarray, sorry about that. Even those who were fighting in Momo, who claimed to have been fighting and extorting money from people, executing people in public squares, they claim to be soldiers. They are now in disarray. They are looking for money to survive. And so, if somebody, five ADF, who were allies, of course, to the government, come and say, well, these are people, what's around that? What difference does it make? What difference does it make? So, if this senator should not for any reason think that, he cannot convince any reasonable man, that if for the past 6 years, 5 years, whatever length of time, he has not gone to Widikum because of 7 boys, only 7 boys. He has not gone to Widikum. He has been on exile. Does he want the governor or anybody in his senses to believe that it is these 7 boys that drove away a whole senator who travels in armored cars from his constituency? A stupidity. Even in the rare organogam of the fight, we have lost more than 7 fighters in Momo, in Widikum even, since the war started. So the surrender of 5 boys is not news. The surrender of 5 or 7 boys has no consequence at all. And if he had meaning, what has that got to do? Is he celebrating with people in Widikum? Or going to take credit from Lele Afrik, 65, call it about 50 miles from Widikum? He's making political show to gain relevance. Why? Because in the next 1 year or so, senatorial elections are up again. He wants to get his next appointment. They are appointed. I don't even know how he got there. There are 2 types of senators. Some are appointed, some are supposed to be elected. So he's preparing the ground. It's not just bringing those people there. I saw the pictures. He's gone to the village and bought food, bought wine, bought rice, which is a precious meal over there, bought fish, which the people have not seen for a long time, fed the people and they are dancing, oh, current lives. That is what he is trying to do. It's pure propaganda. And even if those 7 boys actually were ASAs who have surrendered, they are of no consequence in this struggle because we have lost more than that. In rare death, we have lost more than that. And the war has not ended. The war has instead progressed. So the poor senator is deceiving himself, not you and me. He can convince Yaoundé to give him another office. He can convince Yaoundé to give him 7 million, that each of these 7 boys costs 10 million. That's the business. That's not going to affect the fight in Ambazonia. Absolutely nothing. And so that's pure propaganda, stupid propaganda, because even the people, if the thing was so good, I'm sure he brought those 7 boys in an armored car. Why did he not walk, trek like any man, go to Widikum and talk? He went there escorted. Then he's trying to buy some time. He's trying to take credit for what he does not deserve. If the ADF failed in Momo, it was not because of the senator. It was because of their own actions. Their overzealousness. They have never been part of us in a way, but they failed themselves to a point that they chased them out. They are running there. They find themselves in Boyo, who just said in the first segment, and people are running after them. They are jumping into the bushes and fleeing. So you think General Rambo, if you saw that a guy, he will not go to him and say, Master, take me to the governor, who will give him some good clothes, give him a good food and some money. Why would he not do that? Unless he's a very stupid Rambo. I would do that. I in his position, I would do that. Over to you.
All right, Barrister Mbeseha, that's a very interesting visual probability you gave there, picking the boys up in an armored car. It speaks volume indeed. That visual probability speaks volume. But Barrister Mbeseha, this is where we draw the curtain close with you on the show. As always, it's a pleasure having you here, Barrister Mbeseha, and I particularly absolutely look forward to having you yet again on the show. But for now, I'll say good night to you.
Thank you very much.
All right, and now coming up next is news around Africa. And on the African scene, we see Frelimo's candidate winning Maputo amid tensions over election results. The candidate from Mozambique's ruling Frelimo party has been declared the winner in the capital, Maputo, as the Electoral Commission announced on Sunday during the ongoing vote count for the presidential and parliamentary elections. Daniel Chapo, representing the Mozambique Liberation Front, Frelimo secured 54% of the votes in Maputo, according to the Electoral Commission. His closest rival, independent candidate Venancio Mondlane, who was backed by the small Podemos party, received 34% of the vote. Meanwhile, Osufo Momade from the main opposition party, Renamo, garnered only 9.6%. On Saturday, Chapo urged citizens to remain patient and await the official results of Wednesday's elections. He emphasized that the current results are provisional, as they still need to be validated and formally announced by the Constitutional Council. According to the law, the Council is not bound by a specific deadline to make this decision. Tensions have been rising in the country, particularly after Mondlane's warning on Friday that he would initiate a nationwide strike to paralyze Mozambique if Frelimo declared victory in the presidential election. His call highlights the growing unrest and political division surrounding the election results, which remain a focal point of national concern. With the country awaiting the final declaration from the Constitutional Council, the political atmosphere is tense as the opposition signals its intention to challenge Frelimo's dominance. Well, in Chad, it faces dual catastrophe as torrential rains devastate all provinces. Chad, already weakened by a recurring food crisis, is now grappling with a new tragedy. Torrential rains have inundated all 23 provinces, leading to catastrophic floods. The numbers paint a grim picture, with over 500 lives being lost and thousands of families have seen their homes washed away. The floods have also ravaged more than 400,000 hectares of farmland, further threatening food security in a country where hunger already affects 3.4 million people. The critical infrastructure has been paralyzed with road and bridges submerged, making it extremely difficult for relief workers to reach the hardest hit areas. While pregnant women, particularly vulnerable in this crisis, are now in makeshift camps without access to basic health care. And in response, 248 midwives have been deployed to provide emergency care, while essential hygiene kits have been distributed to 12,000 women and girls. As the nation struggles to cope, the flood have compounded Chad's existing challenges, creating a dual humanitarian crisis that demands urgent global attention. Well, still on regional trade in Uganda, still on the African scene, Uganda signs railway construction deals with Turkish firm Yapı Merkezi. Uganda's government has entered into a strategic partnership with Turkish construction company Yapı Merkezi to build a 272-kilometer, that is 169-mile section of a standard gauge railway, the SGR, aimed at enhancing regional trade. The contract, part of Uganda's broader goal to develop a 1,700-kilometer electric rail line, was signed on Monday. The project's coordinator, Perez Wamburu, announced that the first phase would cost 2.7 billion euros, that is approximately $3 billion US, with construction set to begin in November. Mbeseha Waiswa, Permanent Secretary of Uganda's Ministry of Works, highlighted the project's potential to lower transportation costs and boost trades within the East African region. He noted that the railway line, which will connect the capital Kampala to the Kenyan border town of Malaba, is crucial for linking Uganda's landlocked economy to Kenya's railway network and onward to the Indian Ocean port of Mombasa. Financing for the 48-month project will be sourced from Uganda's own funds, supplemented by credit from export credit organizations. This new agreement follows Uganda's decision last year to terminate its previous contract with China Harbour and Engineering Company Limited, CHEC. Initially, CHEC had agreed to help Uganda secure financing from the Chinese government, but years of unproductive negotiations led the country to seek an alternative. Yapi Merkezi, currently working on a similar project in Tanzania, has now taken the lead in building Uganda's critical infrastructure, which promises to be a game changer for the nation's regional connectivity and economic growth. And with that, we'll head on to the news across the globe. A startling revelation from veteran journalist Bob Woodward's new book, War, has sparked controversy and raised questions about former U.S. President Donald Trump's relationship with Russian leader Vladimir Putin. According to Woodward, Trump secretly sent COVID-19 test kits to Putin in the early days of the pandemic. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov confirmed the report, stating that the Trump administration, quote, sent us several samples of test kits, end quote. Well, this acknowledgement lends credibility to Woodward's claim despite Trump's denial. In an interview with ABC News, American Broadcasting Corporation News, Trump dismissed the allegations as false. However, Woodward's account suggests a cozy and secretive exchange between the two leaders. According to Woodward's book, Trump sent about point of care COVID test machines for Putin's personal use. The reported conversation between Trump and Putin reveals a peculiar dynamic. The revelation raises concerns about unprecedented diplomacy, favoritism, transparency, with Trump's action may be seen as favoring Putin's interests over U.S. national security and global health concerns, as well as Trump's actions. The episode highlighting the lack of transparency in Trump's dealings with foreign leaders. Well, the report comes amid ongoing scrutiny of Trump's relationships with Putin and Russia. Critics argue that Trump's actions undermine U.S. interests and fuel suspicions of collusion. As the story continues to unfold, questions remain. What motivated Trump to send COVID-19 test kits to Putin? Were there other similar exchanges between the two leaders? And how would this revelation impact Trump's legacy and future political aspirations? Example, him vying for the presidential seat in the United States. Well, away from the United States, we see North American countries start applying for BRICS membership. The BRICS alliance received applications for membership from countries in Asia, Africa, South America, and Eastern Europe. For the first time, BRICS has officially received an application to join the bloc from a developing country in North America. Now, this puts the spotlight on the United States as neighboring nations are finding the de-dollarization agenda lucrative. Around 48 countries have now applied to join BRICS before the October 2024 summit, while 27 countries have formally applied to join the alliance. 21 nations have informally expressed their interest in BRICS membership. Well, the North American country Cuba has officially applied for BRICS membership in October 2024 on the heels of the upcoming summit. Russian ambassador to Cuba, Victor Coronelli, confirmed that the North American country has applied to join the alliance. And with that, we've come to the end of the report on the global scene. Coming up next is the recap. With that global report, we've come to the end of our news briefings on Undaunted tonight. But before we go, here are the major highlights. Press freedom under attack in Cameroon, something we saw in details on the national reports, with Ambazonian resistance seeing the Ambazonian state army defending its strongholds amidst ADF sabotaging its efforts. Exploitation allegations in southern Cameroon churches. We get to see 7 supposed ex-fighters present in Bamenda from Windhoek, presented by the Parliamentarian who lives in exile. While Frelimo's candidate wins Maputo amid tensions over election results, something we saw on the African scene and of course on the global scene, we saw Trump yet again secret COVID-19 test kits for Putin, Kremlin confirming. With that, we've come to the end of Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. We'll say good night and God bless. We'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images.